more breaking news right now. We just got a federal court ruling on what you may have heard about, a so-called mystery case that many experts, including legal experts, have speculated is linked to the Mueller probe. What you have is basically a secret entity trying to defy something that is very hard to avoid in America, a grand jury subpoena. Now tonight, this brand new ruling, we just got it in, we just changed our rundown for it. We learned the grand jury seeking information from a corporation that is owned by country a foreign country, and this court tonight ruling that the feds have the authority to issue this subpoena and get the information they want. Now get this, you may have heard, in the Friday oral arguments on this case, the court staff locked down not just the courtroom, but the entire floor of the courthouse where lawyers were making their arguments. Let's get right to it. I'm joined by former Watergate prosecutor Nick Ackerman and attorney Julian Epstein. With a lot of congressional experience, I should mention. Nick, there's a lot we don't know, which obviously can make this very interesting. But when you read the unusual secrecy around this, and tonight finally a ruling that says go forward and get information from a corporation owned by a country, what does it mean?
What it means to me is it's a bank. What they're trying to get are bank records from a foreign bank that is owned by the foreign country. So that would be a country like Russia, China, maybe Saudi Arabia, but what they're trying to do is to get banking records that are located outside of the United States. And there are a number of countries that own banks, but it seems to me what they're looking for is money flowing. That's what they're looking for.
Just to be clear, in a typical case, say someone is unhappy with a credit card issued by a foreign bank and they sue over it and they get into court. Would you lock down the whole courthouse for that?
No. This is for a grand jury. You're trying to maintain the grand jury secrecy, which is why you don't have any parties' names in the caption of this case. And normally, in any case where you're dealing with a grand jury situation where you have to talk about the facts of the case, the courtroom would be locked down. And keep in mind, if you look at this opinion, the three judges here actually received something from the government that was in secret that only they looked at, so they could see exactly what this investigation was about and why it was the government wanted those. And I think they're bank records. It's just got to be.
Julian Epstein, you're in Washington where people love a good mystery. We had individual one. Now we have country A. What is your analysis?
Yeah, like Murder on the Orient Express. It is a great mystery. I think Nick is right, and just so your viewers understand it, what the foreign-owned company was claiming was the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, which protects certain countries from being sued in certain circumstances, but not if you're a corporation engaged in commercial activities, and particularly not if you're engaged in criminal activities. So let's take a hypothetical if we're speculating here. Let's take China, which a lot of people have speculated about. The Bank of China is owned by the Chinese government. The Bank of China also happens to be one of Donald Trump's biggest financial backers, one of his largest tenants at Trump Tower. There's a lot of speculation about that. There's been a lot of speculation about Russian banks' relationships with Manafort, with lots of, at one point Donald Jr. said that they couldn't get any U.S. bank to back them financially in their private dealings, so they went to Russia to find financing. So the Saudis, as Nick says, people speculate about. The Turks obviously thought this White House was for sale, as we know through likely countries that would be involved here would either be China, which is at the top of my list. Second would be Russia. Third would be the Saudi, exactly as Nick is saying. And then fourth, possibly Turkey.
And Nick, what do prosecutors, given that they're winning this step, what would they have to secretly prove to justify getting these records from this state-owned entity abroad?
I mean, I think they'd have to show the judges that, in fact, they have a good reason to ask for this information. They don't have to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. They simply have to have enough information so the judges feel comfortable that the information sought is relevant to their investigation.
Yeah, they're not necessarily accusing. They're not necessarily accusing this corporation of doing something illegal. They are saying this bank, which I agree with Nick as well. It's a bank. They are saying this corporate entity has information that is very relevant to the probe, if in fact this is Mueller. So
relevant to some criminal probe, be it Mueller or otherwise.
This is part of the house of cards that is tumbling.
Right. Well, and tumble it may as we look at this ruling. Julian Epstein and Nick Ackerman, thank you very much for joining me on, as I say, a breaking story. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.